Okay, number 11 says a camera costs $850. If the sales tax rate is 2%, how much tax is charged? Round your answer to the nearest cent. Okay, so the camera is $850. The sales tax rate is 2%. In other words, we have to find 2% of 850. That's what we have to find. So we need 2% of 850 is the tax. So if you recognize this, again, you can translate it into an equation, or you can put it into a percent proportion. It's totally up to you. On these, I don't usually do a proportion. I just find 2% of 850. So I just have to take 0.02 and multiply it by 850 because that's going to equal my tax. So 0.02 times 850 is 17. So this would be money equals tax. Now is $17 how much you're paying for the camera? No. That's how much tax on top of the price of the camera you are paying. So if they ask you for how much tax, $17 is the amount of tax. If they ask you for the total, then you would have to add the purchase price of the camera plus 17, which would be $867. Now this particular problem is asking us for just the tax. So that's all we would need to put down is just the tax. So I was actually done right here. But make sure you read the problem, because if they ask what's the total bill and you leave it at $17, that is so not true. That $850 camera is not going to cost you $17. I wish, but no. Okay, so this one says Annie's Cafe borrows $6,000 at 9% for 230 days. Find the total amount that must be repaid after 230 days. So this, and it says assume that simple interest is being calculated. So on your paper there is actually a simple interest, and it says interest is PRT. If they wanted a total value, then we would use that bottom one, but you don't even need to worry about that. Let's just focus on the simple interest. So the interest is going to be PRT. P stands for principal, which is how much you're starting with. And we are starting with $6,000. So we have $6,000. Our rate is 9%. So I like to put that in as a decimal, which would be 0.09. And my time is 230 days. But the T in the formula represents time in years. So how do we translate 230 days into years? Well, we treat it as a fraction, 230 over 365, since that's how many days are in a year. So this is how we would set up the problem. 6,000 times 0.09 times 230 over 365. Now, this is why you really want to have a calculator, because would you want to do this by hand? Absolutely not. You could actually put this whole thing in your calculator the exact way you see it by using your fraction key. And I got the interest is approximately, and since we're talking about money, I assume we round to the nearest cent. Yeah, so 2 decimal places. I got $340.27. So that's how much interest. Now the problem says find the total amount that must be repaid. Now you're not repaying $340.27. That's how much extra you're paying back on top of the $6,000. So the total.
How did you get that?
All right, so our total is actually $6,000 that we originally borrowed plus the interest. So total, I am paying back $6,340.27. And since it asked me for the total, that's my total. The $340.27 is just how much interest. It's not the total that I'm paying back. So again, make sure that you're answering the question that's being asked. (15), we have 31 feet, and they want to know how many yards is 31 feet. So on here, you do have some unit conversions. You have American to metric and metric to American. So what you do not have is American to American, which is what this problem is asking you for. Hopefully you know the conversion between feet and yards. How many feet are in 1 yard? It's 3, yeah. 1 yard equals 3 feet. So yardstick is 3 feet. So we can use that to find our answer. Now, I like to set it up with conversion factors. 31 feet, and since I want the feet to cancel, I would set up a problem that looks like this, and I know that 1 yard is 3 feet. So when I multiply across, well, actually I can cancel my feet first. I get 31 yards over 3, and so that tells me I have to divide 31 divided by 3. So I get 10.333333, and so I would accept for an answer 10.3 repeating, or it's the same thing as 10 1/3 yards. So either one of those would be acceptable answers. The other thing you might recognize is, you know, when you're doing conversions, you're either multiplying or dividing. So you might go, oh, 31 feet, I can just divide by 3. You might know that right off the bat. I like to set up conversion factors because then I don't have to remember, do I multiply, do I divide, I don't know. I just multiply straight across, then I simplify at the end. So it's, again, up to you how you want to go about solving those. Okay, so let's look at 17. 17 has 6.18 meters equals how many millimeters? Well, if you remember your prefixes, if we had meters in the middle, and if we go right, because we're going smaller, then we had, was it decimeters? So we had like dm here, and then we had centimeters, and then we had millimeters. So if we've got 6.18 in our meters spot, and I have to get it to go all the way over here to millimeters, then I have to move my decimal point how many times? 1, 2, 3 times. Because I need to go from meters all the way to millimeters. That tells me I have to move my decimal point 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. So 6,180 millimeters would be our answer on that one. The other way that you can remember this is milli means 1,000. So you could always take 6.18. You could take 6.18 times 1,000 because milli means 1,000. Centa means 100. This one means 10. And the meters, that's kind of our starting point. That's our base. So that's another way you can get there. A lot of different ways to do your conversions. All right, 19. We have 360 seconds, and they want to know how many minutes is that. Well, there's 60 seconds equals 1 minute. So that's our conversion. So if we want to know how many minutes is 360 seconds, if you write it with conversion factors, we would say 60 seconds, we would say 1 minute. My seconds cancel, and I've got 360 times 1 is 360 minutes divided by 60, which gives me, what is that, 6 minutes. So 360 seconds is the same thing as 6 minutes. So 21, we have 194 degrees Fahrenheit. They want us to convert to Celsius. You've got two different formulas to choose from. It doesn't matter which one you use. One has a fraction, one has a decimal. Most people prefer to use the decimal instead of the fraction, but it really doesn't matter. You just have to plug in the 194 wherever you see the F. So we'll do the one with the decimal in it. So C equals, what, 194 minus 32 all over 1.8. So I just need to simplify that. So 162 divided by 1.8, and I get 90. So 194 degrees Fahrenheit is the same thing as 90 degrees Celsius. One more conversion. We have 4.40 kilometers squared equals how many meters squared? Now this one's kind of a tricky one. If it was just kilometers to meters and we weren't doing the squared business because this is comparing areas, what does the prefix kilo mean? That means 1,000. Okay, there's 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. So if that were the case, then I would move my decimal point how many places? Because I've got 3 zeros, so I would move it 3 places. But it's not just meters, it's actually meters squared. So we have to move it the double number of places. So if we're talking about kilometers squared, that means a 1 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, double the number of zeros, so 6 zeros. So I have to move my decimal point 6 times. So if it starts out at 4.40 and I move it 6 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, fill in some zeros here, it looks like my answer ends up being 440,000. In other words, looks like 4,400,000 square meters is the same thing as 4.4 kilometers squared. Big number. But just remember, when you see that squared, that means it's times itself. So if a single kilometer is 1,000, then a square kilometer is 1,000 times 1,000. And if you multiply that out in your calculator, you get 1,000,000 if you're not used to working with the tens. So that tells us we have to move our decimal point 6 places because there's 6 zeros.